Greetings from Sustainable Development Policy Institute, SDPI, and SDG Secretariat. My name is Dr. Khalid Waleed. Welcome to this imperative parliamentarian consultation on inclusion of just energy transition and climate action into election manifestos 2023. The main aim and objective is to drive for political ownership to this just energy transition agenda and climate action agenda. For welcome remarks, I would invite Dr. Shafkat Munir, Deputy Director, SDPI. Sir, please.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Khalid. Everyone, welcome to this event. I know around the table there are a lot of experts sitting. We have our parliamentarian and expert ministers have this here. Honorable Minister Sahab, Musaddiq Malik Sahab, Senator Taj Hagar Sahab, and Ramina Khurshid Aram Sahaba, who is also heading the SDG task force and the co-host of this event. Welcome, everyone. When we look at the scenario here, which we are discussing in the climate change context, we are very clear of the reports recently released, and we have seen South Asia vulnerable to climate change. And most of the things, if you look at in this term, in terms of carbon emission, one is the energy sector, other is the water and agriculture. So these are among the big things, and transport, of course, is part of it. That's why our focus here is that we should work with the leadership from different political parties. SDPI has the honor of working with them closely, and very great colleagues, and they guide us occasionally on these areas. Actually, they themselves are committed, and this commitment is shown by the recently concluded Pakistan Adaptation Plan, which was long due. But I would congratulate the government on behalf of all the three leaders are here, that they have done a very good job, which actually sets the need for the people. So when we talk about the agenda for today's meeting, I have a couple of points which I want to share with this brief background. One is that when we talk about the energy transition and we say that we want to move to clean energy options, for that there are certainly international efforts also. SDPI is part of some of the regional and global initiative as well, where there is a debate going on that the parliaments from various countries, particularly from Asia, which is the most vulnerable region in the years to come, that there should be some initiation of process from these countries on international forum, so that we can actually push for a new treaty, international treaty, to phase out on fossil fuels, replacing with the alternate energy solutions. So that would complete the agenda of our transition, which we are talking about. So for that, we have drafted a very humble, few-worded resolution also, which of course is not the final document. It can be altered, and our honorable parliamentarians are there. They can also take it to their party, and then they can present in the National Assembly or Senate. National Assembly is already, completing the term, but the debate should start at least. So the purpose of this forum is also that we should interact with the parliamentarian who represent all the two big parties. And here the expert can also exchange their point of views with them. They have their own point of view. So at the end of this consultation, certainly we'll be reaching to a level where we can be moving forward towards the very purpose of this network, which SDPI has set up with other energy partners and other colleagues here. And of course, our international partners are also part of it. So briefly, I would just conclude here that we have to start thinking now the transition right from the country level to the global level, because it's not just a country works on it and it will work. Certainly, we have to move regionally and internationally. Thank you very much, Dr. And once again, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Shafkat. Sustainable Development Agenda is driven by Sustainable Development Goals, and these goals in Pakistan are driven by very effective and operational SDG Secretariat and the task force. To elaborate further, I would respectfully invite Ma'am Rumina Khurshid. She is the convener on SDG Task Force. Ma'am, please.
Thank you very much. Very good evening. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My honorable senators, both the excellencies, my very seniors and respectable and very learned people. I'm very much glad that they are here with us. It's a great honor for me to co-host along with STPI. And of course, I would really like to say and welcome to all the participants who are sitting right and left. Most of them, I know them and they know me, so I will not go more further in the details. It's a great honor to be here, to be the part of it. I believe that this is the strongest need of a time that where we need to talk, and I'm very much it's a great moment that Mr. Musaddiq is here, who is talking great about it, and not only talking, of course, he's performing as well. And in the coming future, we are going to see those results as well. But one thing I would really like to request, because as we are having few development partners as well, that when we talk about any agenda to come in, to bring in manifestos, when the think tanks or the researchers, they want along with great research and homework, when afterwards they bring something towards in a conclusion form or in concrete form, I think the time is more better, like 3-4, not just because now we're in the phase of going to be the phase in the election. I think it's better to have it to start it in 6-7 months before, a year before, so it could be more discussions, and then one can do same goes, because when we talk about the high political forum dialogues and about the VNR reports, so what I've learned in this 1 year mostly, that it is very much needed that when we talk about these sort of high decisions, important decisions, not urgent decisions, important decisions that is the great need that all the political parties, they should sit together. And they do the dialogues, and with your the research and the help, that can then the concrete follow-up should come, or this recommendations come. And it's a humble recommendation and a suggestion as being a parliamentarian. And I'm really grateful that as we have, along with SDPI, we tried our best, but it would be more better and great in the further more future if we can work in that way. Getting back to the subject, of course, when we talk about the political parties, so I believe this is something which is more over needed, and I believe that to make it more prioritize investment in clean and renewable energy, because the most developed countries, they have already they have not started, they are almost achieved, they are very much on it. So I think when we talk about our developing countries, so it's more important that our political parties, they should do more prioritize on their agendas, and on which we are trying. And when we talk about a low carbon economy can allow political parties to contribute to job, of course, creation and economic growth by promoting clean energy industries, and parties can also support in local economies and faster sustainable prosperities. Because to be very in my perspective, in this 1 year of time, although I was been before as well the task force member, but the way we have worked and the way we have communicated, went to the provinces, and we have done national meetups. In that we have came across to learn, and the most important solution is to go for the local governance system and to engage them and to empower them, and then to utilize more these abilities of them of these specific subject, and to make them aware that why it's important, how it's important, how we can go more further towards the solutions. And for that matter of a fact, I believe that parties can support local economies and foster sustainable prosperity, which is very important key component. Even if the initial investment is high, renewable energy sources will ultimately lead to higher economic benefits that will be ultimately benefit the public that is distressed by high electricity fares. When we talk about Pakistan, of course, Pakistan has reduced reliance on fossil fuel import. It will enable us to build resilient energy system that can withstand external shocks and, of course, fluctuations in global energy markets. As a country, I believe that we suffer from the devastating impacts of climate change, prioritizing climate change and green energy while designing party manifestos. Political parties in Pakistan can exhibit a greater commitment to tackling climate change. Will improve, of course, Pakistan's position in the international negotiation and partnerships that relate the climate change, which will enable Pakistan to advocate for climate justice on international forums and foster collaborations by sustainable initiatives. And very strongly, because I've been variously part of different COPs and being a climate change activist from long, in the end as well, I want to say something as well. But before that, I would really say that various political parties, including, of course, Pakistan People's Party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, Pakistan Muslim League N, and Muttahida Qawmi Movement, among others, have refrained their commitment to sustainability and conversation in their party's manifesto. PMLN especially places clean energy as a strategic priority and promotes investment in clean energy solutions, including just energy transition and climate action. Election manifestos are not only necessary for addressing the pressing climate crisis, but also reflects commitment to social justice, economic growth, and global leadership. And in the end of my remarks, because we were talking about, because Pakistan is, of course, on the receiver end, and we all know that we are on the top 10 vulnerable countries. But when we talk about the international countries, development partners, and on these specific forums, I really, because from the SDG side as well, we have worked on it. We have, like recently in New York, I had a discussion as well over there in the Bangkok UN meeting as well. I've given this idea, and over here in SDGs in SDC conference which we had last December, very strongly I've advocated, not only advocated, we are working on it, that Pakistan, this Asia Pacific region, needs to come up with a consortium, because we cannot mix the apples with the oranges when we talk about the climate change in the different COPs. Of course, everybody talk about in general, but we all know that if we're really looking forward towards the solutions, for that matter of a fact, we have to go for the region wise. And the Asia Pacific region is the most vulnerable region because we are at the receiver end. And for that, in that way, we are like trying our level best, along with the STPI, along with other partners, that we should come up with a consortium of Asia Pacific region on which we need to put the pressure as well towards the developed countries, that they should, they should come up with this, not on, because we are not only looking for the aid, it is more towards the trade, because we are the one, because when we talk about the climate justice, so this is also one of the recommendations for the further, other than the manifesto, because of course the developing other partners are sitting over here. So by taking that advantage, I said this. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ma'am Romina. We agree that the way forward for renewable energy agenda and climate action is to have an integrated approach for technocrats, politicians, parliamentarians, development partners, academia, and civil society. And when we talk about the integration of technical expertise, politics, academia, and civil society, we have honor to have Minister for Petroleum, Dr. Musaddiq Malik Saab. Sir, please, if you are comfortable there, you can talk from there, and you can.
I can speak from here. Thank you very much for inviting me over. I'm always perplexed by these things. First of all, I'm so sorry. I indicated that I may have to leave at 3:30. It's already 3:30, and if the call comes, I'll. And if basically call comes, then I'll have to cut short and I'll have to leave. Look, I am completely perplexed after these 16, 18 months. I think the rhetoric or the narrative is not supported by any action. It's just conversations about green in thin air. And everyone wants to talk green, so we also talk green. And everyone wants to talk just, so we also talk just. And my question is, just for whom? And I don't get the answer. Just for the people of Pakistan, just for the universe, just for the world, just for the environment, just for whom? And that's a central question. Now, obviously, you would ask me, why do you ask this question? I ask this question because we very firmly believe, as a party as well as a country, we were made to believe that we are all interwoven into one fabric, that the world was one fabric. And we have to save, for the sake of our own children, we have to save the environment and the climate. And therefore, not for any other reason, but before we have a shared future generation, the entire world. Therefore, we must go green, and green we must go. And we tried to do that, and we are trying to do that. And then the geopolitics changed. And then all of a sudden, a cargo that was an LNG cargo, which was $30–40 million, became $150 million, $160 million, because Europe was on a buying spree. And we turned to the world where we had a collective future, where our children were going to share the environment, for the sustainability of which we were all committed to going green. And we said, hey, and what about us? And the world looked at us and says, what about you? Now go figure out. We have the money, we're going to get the energy. You go figure out your own stuff. And I said, but what about that shared fabric, global? And everyone did this. And I bewilderedly looked at them and I said, what exactly does that mean? So in that moment, I realized that it's not like we are interwoven into a global fabric. I realized that we are not even a patch on it. And this entire idea that has been propagated to us, it has some teeth, but not enough. And more teeth needs to be, for us to have a stronger bite, we need to have more real teeth. And then all of a sudden, I found out that Europe has started to open up their coal mines. And I said, but coal was black and coal was dirty. So this is 2021. We just had signed all of those agreements and COPs and what are those millennium goals and these goals and that goals. And so what about those goals? And they said, what about those goals? And I said, but what about those goals? And they said, well, we are energy short. And we're going to open up our coal mines. And we're going to open up our coal plants. And I was like, whoa, how interesting. How interesting. So I still don't, the reason why I say I'm bewildered is because I truly am. I don't know how our coal is black and some other coal is yellow or orange or purple with turquoise polka dots. I don't know what color that coal is, which is getting opened up. So I started to ask myself this fundamental question, just for whom? Just to the extent of a certain geopolitical boundary condition? And that's the resolve of the world. And when that boundary condition doesn't suit the world, then the world tells us, buzz off, go figure out on your own. And then how do we figure out? What do we have? We have over $5 trillion worth of coal. I mean, people are making a mockery of it over the past couple of days. There's a report, 2015 report. You guys have that report. It's a GPS, what is it? The Geological Survey report of Pakistan, GSP report. And it says we have over $5 trillion worth of coal. And we were very cautiously moving forward. I was the most reluctant man in terms of moving forward on coal. When the greatest leaders of environment started to open up their coal mines and started to open up their coal plants, and I said, what should we do? Bury our $5 trillion worth of asset. Bury it deep down. And for the rest of the world, the rule is that when it doesn't suit, coal is black, and when it does suit, coal is what, green or brown or orange or some other color. So I stand in front of you bewildered, and that's all I want to say. We are We are a country of 220, 30, 40 million, because we are never going to have a consensus on the census. So who knows?
300 plus, sir.
500? How about 3,000?
Actually,
No, there's no actuality. Actuality is empirical basis. When evidence is suspect, then it's your word against mine. You say 300, I say 7.
I'll give you the.
No, you can give me the calculations, but there's a process for that that we have all agreed on. And that process is suspect. So we don't know. We don't know we are 300. I mean, my honorable friend says 300. I would concede because I concede to most of the stuff that he says. But the point that I'm making is not about 3 or 250. It's about evidence being suspect. That's basically what I would like to talk about. But we are about 240, 50, 300 million people. We are poised, even with the most conservative estimates, we are poised to become 350, 349 million by year 2050. So we're going to require energy. We're going to require energy. If we just assume that we are going to grow at 4% sustainably, every year on year, we're going to require an increase of energy of 7.5% to 10%, because 1% increase in GDP, depending upon our industrial footprint, requires about 1% to 1.5% to 2% increase in energy. That's the relationship, global relationship between energy and GDP growth. So if you're assuming 4 to 5% growth, you're assuming 7.5% to 2%, 7.5 to 10% growth in energy year on year. So where is this energy going to come from? We have announced 10,000 megawatts. We've announced 5 programs of 10,000 megawatts of renewable energy. We haven't received any global bids. We're waiting. We need to straighten out our house as well, because there are many problems within our house, but those are not the only problems. There's also, like as I said, that the noise is much larger than the bite. I mean, I have been in conversations with several countries about green energy, and every time I talk about it, everyone claps. But when I say where's the funding, everyone looks around. They look at each other, then they start to look out to the window. So green hydrogen is more expensive than the traditional energy. If we, a poor country, are going to move towards green hydrogen, then some kind of funding has to be available through Exim banks, through low cost of capital or zero cost of capital, through some fund which is here Pakistan specific, because we are asking, I have been asking, I've been going in every country asking about funding for green hydrogen. I've received none. I've received great applause. Every time I say green hydrogen, people clap. And then there's silence. And then I say, well, we need to bring the cost of capital down so that it becomes a valuable proposition, and so on and so on. And then there's more silence. And then at the end of the meeting, I says, okay, now let's sit around the table and figure out how we're going to do green energy in Pakistan, green hydrogen in Pakistan, and people start to look outside of the window. So what do you want us to do? Talk about green hydrogen? Here, I talk about green hydrogen. Please clap. Please clap. I've spoken about green hydrogen. Now I'm going to talk about green ammonia. And I basically went around and I asked everyone that 1/3 of Pakistan's gas, which can be used for productive uses, for industrial growth, is being used in fertilizers. And we already have a framework and technology in place to produce green ammonia. And then everyone claps. This is the first time people are not clapping. The first time, first ever. So people clap and they say, whoa, green ammonia, wow, so wonderful. And I said, yeah, so what about financing of green ammonia? And silence. And then I said, how about structuring a deal? And then everyone's class begins to look out of the window. So, just for whom? And just how? And all of these big buzzwords, which we've been talking, I've been hearing about these Millennium Development Goals, which were previously Sustainable Development Goals, which were previously some other development. How long? 30 years, 25 years, started in 2002, I think, 2002. This is 2022. 23. So I would just say, let's talk real. Let's talk real. So these nice seminars about great ideas which have no bite and no teeth, let's bring some teeth to it. Let's bring some bite to it. And whoever is truly interested in green, only let's invite them to the table and let's talk green. We are doing green. I have ordered already for every petroleum company of Pakistan to become an energy company. So, हमारी जो OGDC है, OGDC has already announced a wholly owned subsidiary which would only do renewables. PPL is in the process of announcing a company which would only do renewables. PSO has already taken the board resolution and is going gung-ho towards green energy because we're going to put our money where our mouth is. We're not just going to talk green because we are going green for the sake of our children. We're a vulnerable country. We're the 6th or 7th most vulnerable country in the world. So we are going to go green with the rest of the world or without the rest of the world because we are doing it for our own children. If the world is not interested in putting in 10,000 megawatts of energy, our petroleum companies, which make a lot of money, shall invest in going green. But on natural constraints, we wouldn't have green hydrogen and we wouldn't have green ammonia because when we talk green, everyone applauds and then there's pin drop silence. Pin drop freaking silence after the applause. So thank you very much. Please give me a big applause because after that, there's going to be some silence. My apologies. It's like हमारे वो होता है कि वो मुशायरा हो रहा था तो शायर अपने शेर उठा के उठ के भागते हुए पीछे उसके भागते पकड़ो इसको यार हमारी तो सुनी नहीं इसने ये अपनी कह के निकल गया लेकिन my apologies because I knew ahead of time that I have meeting. I wanted to be here. I wanted to speak to you guys. That's why I came, but unfortunately there are meetings back to back, so I will have to beg leave, which is very rude. So I hope you would accept my apology for this. Thank you. नहीं हम तो अब जाके बाइट डालेंगे ना इसमें हमने तो आपको बता दिया कि हमारी कंपनियां क्या क्या कर रही हैं हमने हवा में तो कोई बात नहीं
Well, agreeing to Dr. Saab, we need actions. We need a global fair green agenda. We need evidence-based analysis. We need green financing. We need to transform our petroleum and other sort of companies to energy companies. And for a stronger bite, we need more teeth. And for more power and energy, we are gathered here today. Well, we have a very vibrant and powerful representation today, including parliamentarians, bureaucracy, Democrats, academia, development partners, civil society. I again welcome you all. Next is a brief presentation on these documents which are lying in front of you. This is a very simple sort of presentation based on these documents. And this document is based on technical analysis done by SDPI partners and SDG Secretariat so that it could be integrated into manifestos. This is the total energy requirement for Pakistan. It is 88.4 million tons of oil equivalent. If we compare it to China, USA, and India, this is very, very less significant figure. To get this energy, we consume about 41.4% of biofuels, mainly firewood. 20.9% of this energy comes from natural gas, which is depleting in Pakistan. 19.3% comes from oil, which is obviously imported fuel. 10.5% comes from electricity generated from hydro, nuclear, and renewable energy sources, wind and solar, and other renewables. 7.9% comes from coal, which is obviously has environmental concerns. According to International Energy Agency forecast, by 2030, our primary energy consumption will increase to more than 100 million tons of oil equivalent. So the problem at the hand is that we need not only to incorporate or cater for this increased energy, but we transform our existing energy profile as well, which is heavily dependent on fossil fuels. Biofuels in terms of firewood causes deforestation. Natural gas reserves are depleting. Oil reserves, they are imported, and coal is, as Dr. Saab mentioned, that there is black coal and other form of it. This is the sectoral analysis. Oil is majorly consumed in transport sector. Gas is majorly consumed at household level, followed by industry, power, transportation. Coal is majorly consumed in power, brick kiln, and cement, whereas electricity is majorly consumed at domestic, industrial, agriculture, commercial, and other sectors. What are different challenges and problems? First and major challenge, as Musaddiq Malik Saab has also mentioned, that household is the major energy consumer. We are not putting our energy profile for production uses or industrial production. If we see this graph, the share of industry in Pakistan in total energy is about 25%, which is contrary to the world trend. China and India is way ahead of us. Transportation is fine. Residential is the problem, where we consume about 50% of our total energy in residences at household level, which means that we are not putting our energy to production uses or for industry. Another problem is that subsidies for fossil fuels in this budget, fiscal year 2024, a vast amount of subsidies for fossil fuel is given, 947.67 billion rupees, which is equivalent to total federal public sector development program, which is higher than the total pension, that is 801 billion PKRs, which is higher than the total cost of running civil government, federal civil government, excluding army, 714 billion rupees. So these subsidies are also an issue. SDG performance, well, I have jotted down 5 SDGs goals. SDG 7, in terms of SDG 7, we are stagnant, not making any progress. In terms of SDG 10, reduce inequalities, we have made tremendous achievement. SDG 12, 13, 17, we have made achievements. But in terms of SDG 7, we are lacking, we are stagnant. If you see this indicator, renewable energy share in total final energy consumption, it has declined in SDG scores. So we need to cater renewable energy agenda into our policy making. Okay, another problem is that energy is interlinked, coupled with this economic turmoil. The graph is showing that share of imports in primary energy supply is increasing over the period of time since fiscal year 14. Next slide, please. Okay, what are the opportunities and options? First one, climate justice should be a national issue. Just energy transition as national narrative. Integrate energy and environment into economic policies. There should be charter of economy, energy, and environment. There should be integrated indicative energy planning, just energy transition partnerships, JETPs. These are potential for the question, or potential answer for the question where the financing would come from. Just energy transition partnerships are a way forward. Last but most important is the political, legislative, and legal cover for sustainable policies. These are some of the themes on which these documents are based. First one is the transition to clean and renewable energy, for which we propose that policies and regulatory sort of policies should be certain. There should not be any uncertainty in policies and regulatory reforms. Integrated energy policy should be there. Indigenization of renewable energy technologies, unlocking the private financing. Second theme in this document is fast tracking the renewable energy access through decentralized systems, regional energy trade programs. Third is the economic recovery of the sector. We need to come up with a circular debt management plan, which is owned politically. Rationalization, privatization, and devolution, because rationalization in energy sector, it has some political toll as well, because when you rationalize in energy sector, prices of fuels would go up, and this is not good for politics. So we need to have this integrated, holistic sort of approach so that these issues can be catered into manifestos as well. Fourth one is demand side management, energy efficiency and conservation, energy efficiency and energy conservation in informal sector, because we talk about formal sector, but we sort of ignore this informal sector. Decarbonization of transportation sector. Fifth theme is green financing through green funds, green financing through private sector, which is very important these days. And last, in this theme, lastly, the carbon markets and credits. Sixth theme is the just energy transition partnerships. Regional integration is very important. Just energy transition partnerships, just like South Africa has applied for. They applied for $80 billion in terms of jet fees. They are getting $8 billion. Just Energy Transition Partnership was initiative taken in COP26 Glasgow, where G7 countries and their private sector fund for energy transition and other sort of things. We can use CPEC as China-Pakistan Energy Corridor so that we can generate a Pakistan-tailored, powered by China, Just Energy Transition Partnership. Seventh and last theme is that we need to have this political, constitutional, legislative, and legal cover. There are three themes: mainstreaming RE agenda through political manifestos. We are proposing green manifestos, sustainability as political capital, because sustainability takes toll on political campaigning as well, because sustainability requires harsh decisions in terms of increasing fuel prices. So we need to cater sustainability as political capital as well. Long-term planning, legislation for sustainable energy policies, policy consistency, carrot and stick approach should be owned by political parties for effective taxation and subsidies reforms. Climate diplomacy, climate financing as a macroeconomic tool, just like monetary policy and other sort of macroeconomic tools. Integration of RE, environment and economic policies through inflation targeting through sustainable energy, just like they did in USA, Inflation Reduction Act, or in European Union for Fit for 55 initiative. Incentivization of RE energy technologies, just like UK has adopted an act that is known as 2023 Social Housing Decarbonization Fund and Home Upgradation of Grant Allocation. Lastly, the indigenization of RE technology. The last act from Parliament in terms of RE came into being in 2018, and that was the Pakistan Council for Renewable Energy Technologies Act. PICRET was formed. So we need to have this political ownership and political backing, and manifest in terms of manifestos. RE agenda should be incorporated into the manifestos so that the policies can be long-term and sustainable. With this, I thank you so much and open house for the discussion. Thank you so much. Okay. With this, Senator Tadsab, sir, respected sir, please for your remarks.
Thank you, madam. And I want to assure you that I'll be sitting here till the end of this conference. But I only wanted to change the mood and brighten up our participants a little. Renewable energy was a part of the 2018 manifesto of Pakistan People's Party. But what is more important is what has really been done. Rather, it was a part of the 2013 election manifesto. We are sitting for more than a decade in a parliament which is a green parliament. The Chinese government had put us a solar plant, and we are selling electricity worth about, I think, more than 5 or 6 million per month to the Islamabad Electricity Distribution Company. Going forward from there, let me inform you that in 2014, I was given the charge of, there was disaster in Thar, there was drought, and I was given the charge of that area. And our greatest problem was provision of water, provision of drinking water for the people. And we put about 800 reverse osmosis plants in that area. More than 2,000 in the entire Sindh, but 800. Around 700 of these plants were energized by solar energy. And while deciding on where to put a RO plant, I didn't have to look for the grid because that package was already there. 18 panels, pumps, RO plant, storage tank and everything. And I could just check that if there is no other plant within 5 kilometers of the area where the plant is being proposed, then I would say, please go ahead, and it would be ready within a month. And it was a month because preparation of that pump house and construction of that storage, that took time, and otherwise it was a job of 3 or 4 days. Now, we started renewable energy in a very big way. And on the Indus Highway between Karachi and Hyderabad near Jampir, we are generating about 3,000 megawatts in wind energy and solar energy. The problem is that all that energy cannot be evacuated because the transmission lines are not there. And so the program has faced a blockage. My own office in Karachi for the last 5 years is running 8 air conditioners on solar energy. We spent about 1.3 million on the project, and we save about 300,000 rupees per month in electricity bills. And this has been going for the last 5 years. There is no load shedding. My wife owns that place, and this is a teaching institute, so there is no load shedding. And this is the kind of saving that we are making. The plant, after I designed it one day, it started working on the third day. 2 years back, there were floods in Karachi. There was heavy rain, and the entire city went dark. I only shifted to my office to have my air conditioner running all night and having light. So that's the kind of things we are doing, we have been doing. Somehow this trend has caught up, not only in Sindh, but I was visiting 2 months back Hyderabad, and I saw every third house in Hyderabad having a solar panel plant and getting their electricity. In Karachi now, it's very popular, and those who can afford it, afford the initial cost, always put the solar panel there. About 5 months back, I and Senator Salim Wandiwala, we proposed through a resolution in the Senate of Pakistan that industrial areas, every industrial area should have a solar park so that the industry can get its electricity at 6 or 7 rupees per kilowatt hour. I'm happy to inform you that the resolution was passed unanimously. All parties, including the Tehreek-e-Insaf who are in opposition, they gave valuable inputs, and that resolution was passed. I wrote to the minister. The deputy secretary replied that this was against the policy. You can only sell it to the distribution companies. You can't sell it directly to the consumers. Then I wrote another letter, a very nasty letter. And I said, well, what policy are you talking about? The one that has destroyed our country. And you're not ready to listen to new ideas. But I never received a reply. Anyway, with the passage of that very resolution, because I and Chief Minister Sindh, we sit down together and we make such conspiracies. The Chief Minister Sindh undertook a survey of all the industrial areas in Sindh as to how much load was required, what should be the capacity of the solar park, and were there places inside every solar park, every industrial area where solar park could be built, or Was there an empty space nearby from where we could put a solar park and energy could be wheeled? So that survey is complete now. And we are hiding behind Article 157 of the Constitution, which allows a provincial government to build their own power plants and to fix their own tariffs and supply the energy to anybody who wants that energy. But once again, the leadership of the party thought, rather said that Salim Mandiwala and Taj Hadar are always thinking of industry and production and all those things. We have to think of the people. There was a big disaster in Sindh last year, and on 2.1 million houses in Sindh, we decided to put solar panels. We decided to rebuild about 2 million houses, but the resources were limited. We have been able to build only 50,000 houses up till now. And we have only been able to put about 200,000 solar panels on 200,000 houses only. And when my friends congratulate themselves on what they have achieved, I always remind them how much more is to be done. So, but once a thing is started and once there is political will behind it, well, we can make progress. Gentlemen, there is a lot of money going around for projects that are feasible. There is a lot of money going around. Chinese banks have been cooperating in a great way, in a big way, with the government of Sindh for all feasible projects. We found the Thar coal. And the Thar coal mining was started in 2014, right at the time when Thar was given to me, and there was a drought in Thar. Now we are producing 3,600 megawatts in Thar. A few months back, I complained in the Senate that, well, there is only one transmission line which is evacuating only 1,800 megawatts from Thar. And a stage had come where we had to close down our plants periodically, and there were disputes between the different energy producers that who should close first. But then I was assured, and I'm very happy that the personal interest that the Minister of Power, Mr. Khurram Dastagir, took in the project, the entire 306 megawatts is being evacuated from Thar coal fields. But once again, by December, we have another 660 megawatts coming up. By next April, another 660 megawatt, but that's where we want to put a stop to that. Now, we've been trying, and the feasibilities and everything was ready for a railway line, which would connect Islam Court with Shore, and which could put the Thar coal on the railway network, on the national railway network. Our cost of production of coal in Thar is coming to $27 per ton, while the country is importing coal at the rate of $400 per ton. So that railway line was important. And last year, when I was speaking on the budget, I put forward this demand that a railway line should be completed. And Honorable Prime Minister was so keen on that he rushed to Thar next week. A week after that, he took the Chief Minister along, and then he announced in Mithi that trains would be running by 23rd March, which meant that in another 8 or 9 months, train would be running. But we understand the financial problems that the federal government is facing. And this year, in the Standing Committee on Finance, where I had given some proposals, I offered to Mr. Ishaq that, sir, we understand that you are short of finance. Government of Sindh will build the railway line at its own cost. In another week, we took the decision because the feasibility, the surveys, everything was complete to put the railway line at the cost of the province. We are putting up that railway line. And we also announced our selling price for coal, which would be $30 for projects within Thar and $37 for projects situated outside Thar. Now you can compare it with the $400 per ton at prices at which the coal is being imported in Pakistan. Ladies and gentlemen, we would be running that conveyor belt, which is put at Port Qasim to put that imported coal into railway trucks in the reverse direction. Once we are on the railway network, we would be exporting coal, and there are customers all around. At the coast of Gujarat, they are manufacturing they are producing 19,000 megawatts of electricity from coal plants, which is only 150 kilometers by sea from Bin Qasim port. And the coal for those plants is coming all the way from Australia. So that's the kind of market that we have for the Thar coal. And right now we are saving a lot of money in foreign exchange by producing about 3,600 megawatts on coal. But we really look forward to earning a lot of foreign exchange through the export of coal. But we have to go forward. And at present, India has got 42 solar parks. The biggest of their solar parks, producing 2,225 megawatts, the Batla Solar Park, is situated about 70 kilometers from my camp office in Thar. The cost of that solar park has been only $1.3 billion. Now, this is all available on the internet. They built that solar park in about 20 months. And they built that solar park in stages of 200 megawatts each. When that first 200 megawatts was ready, they started selling electricity. And then very soon 400 megawatts was ready, and well, the project started paying for itself. They are selling electricity at the rate of 3.2 cents per kilowatt hour. But I was surprised to see a tender which has been opened in the way. The prices that they have quoted for their electricity is only 1.9 cents per kilowatt hour. So the age of hydrocarbons is coming to a close. The age of renewables is already here. And the sooner we follow that path, the quicker we can develop our country. And by reducing the energy costs, we can give a boost to our national production by reducing the cost of production. Well, I was not surprised, but I was quite pleased to listen to Mr. Kejriwal, who governs Delhi, whose party governs Delhi, that electricity now is free for all kinds of consumers in Delhi. Now, if you have an industry, you'll get free electricity in Delhi. Mr. Kejriwal's party, about 1 year back, won about 92 seats out of 117 seats in Indian Punjab. The first announcement that the new chief minister of Indian Punjab made was that 300 units of electricity would be free for all domestic consumers. Now, the Excellency, the German ambassador was visiting me in my office, and we were discussing this. And I said, Excellency, how much electricity does a small house need? I think not more than 70 units per month. The 230 units that he's being provided free can go towards establishment of cottage industry. And I said, if somebody is making shirts in his house, what is the cost of production? And Excellency said, well, only the cost of cloth. I said, would you be competing them? So no, we'll be buying our shirts from them. So this is the kind of opening that this has provided. And as I said, so much of money is going around. Now at the Tharkol, as I said, there are constraints because the banks don't provide the money unless you have an alternate source of water. We have built a canal, but of course there is a limit to how much we should produce. We will be stopping at 4,500 megawatts. But then feasibility or pre-feasibility, I should say, is already ready to turn that with the Chinese company to turn that coal into coal gas, which is methane, use that methane for producing fertilizer, and use that methane for overcoming the gas shortage that we have in the country. A bag of urea, which is selling for 3,000 plus in the market, would cost around 450 rupees. If we take our base material as the Tharkol. DAP bag, which costs 12,000 plus, would cost about 800 rupees per bag. The question arose that the other fertilizer companies are buying their gas at a certain rate, while the gas that we are producing at the will be producing at the Tharkol gas coal fields would be very low, would cost very little. So what should we do? Now, in order to balance the market, the proposal that is being considered by the government of Sindh is that to provide gas to the other companies at a very, very cheap rate and put that much amount of gas, that much quantity of gas in the pipelines that would be connected to the Tharkol fields. So you can have a balance between the cost of fertilizer between the existing fertilizer plants and what new plants. The real hurdle was where to locate that plant, the fertilizer plant. And for that, we were waiting for the decision of the federal government about the railway line, because fertilizer has to be transported. For gas, we have to put pipelines and connect it to national gas grid. And only then we can put that gas into the pipelines. But to give you an idea of the kind of possibilities that are before us, which we are utilizing, well, not fully, but quite substantially, or say a very little part of that possibilities has been utilized till now, but the utilization of one part builds up the base for going ahead for other parts and for further improving the production. But the problem really is, yes, Mr. Isagdar never tires of saying how many thousands of kilometers of gas pipeline we have in the country, and he calls it an asset. But, and of course, it's an asset. But the leakage from those gas pipelines is 30%. And the way they try to overcome the leakage is that they put more pressure. When they put more pressure, more gas leaks out. There's a very simple technology which we are pushing with the federal government. You just insert a plastic pipe in the steel pipeline and the holes, they are leaked automatically. It's flexible plastic. And back in 2030, the World Bank had given us a loan of $100 million to plug those leakages. At that time, the leakage was about 8.5%, which was, of course, very alarming, because 3% plus it becomes alarming. But we did not use that loan. So I think that we should seriously be considering to plug these leakages, and to that way we would be generating more gas, and more gas would be available. The SDGs in 2014, when I went there, it was a desert. I could not walk to the house of Dr. Mahesh Malani because there were heaps of burning sand on the way. When I would walk from the circuit house to my camp house, my shoes would get filled with burning sand. Right now, this is a vacation spot. There is 30,000 square kilometers of forest in what we used to call the third desert. The cyclone that was hitting Karachi and moving north, 200 kilometers before Karachi, it turned right towards third desert. It rained for 14 hours before the cyclone moved to India and Rajasthan. If it had rained for mere 7 hours in Karachi, Karachi would be half drowned. So that's the kind of change we have brought. We can bring, and we can't. I admit people give me a lot of credit for what small service I've done in that, but it was a blessing from Allah. Karbala ke pyason ke sadke mein ye ho gaya hai. So the blessings of Allah are unlimited, and they are not limited to one particular area. We can do so much in other areas which are backward in Pakistan. Why can't we have solar parks in Balochistan? There are villages as small as 100, 200 houses. We only have to put a few solar panels, and those villages would be electrified. Right now, the transmission network inside Balochistan cannot take the amount of electricity that is Balochistan's share. They cannot utilize their share because the transmission network can take only 700 megawatts, while their share is about 1200 megawatts. One solution is that we build local grids in the towns, in the villages of Balochistan, and Balochistan will enter a new age. How much does it cost? Why can't a government do it on its own? Why can't the federal government put in some money to, and if we do it, and of course, I know that there are certain areas in Balochistan where the law and order situation is very bad, but it's a very large provinces. There are many other areas where we can electrify the villages. So let's move with the will. And if there is a will, quite a lot can be done. Let me announce here today, sir, ladies and gentlemen, that the SDGs in the Tehsil of Islam Court will be achieved by 2025. We have already done about 90% in health and education and sanitation and I mean, and in the entire Thar, the SDGs will be achieved in year 2028. When I was being sent to Thar, and I had volunteered that, well, somebody has to stay there and face the problem in order to, otherwise the entire Sindh cabinet was blaming one another. You know, the information department does not stop the bad news about Thar that is coming every day. And that minister is doing this and that minister. And then I told the chief minister, I said, somebody has to face the problems. He says, when can you go? When it's a long distance, I have to fill up my petrol tank. So I'll need about 15 minutes after this meeting ends to start with her. I telephoned my wife from there and I said, send my luggage because after the meeting So she was so scared that she said, no, I'm not sending you there alone. She came with her own luggage that I'll go with you. That was the kind of situation. And when the chief minister said, how long can you stay? Mr. Qayyam Ali Shah, who did a lot of work, I remember more than 20 visits that he made to Thar when I was there. He says, how long can you stay there, Mr. Tajaddin? I said, I am a Hadri. I shall not return if the problem is not solved. And well, Allah is kind and Allah is kind on all of us. But let's get out of this mode of sorrow and of grief. And I'm these days studying my Iqbal once again. And when I started studying Iqbal once again, I came to realize that I never knew Iqbal. But the message of Iqbal is that where there are deserts today, you will see gardens tomorrow, and you can do it. Unfortunately, Iqbal is not read these days. It's John Elia who is the most popular poet. He's a very good friend of mine, but he has pushed the entire nation into pessimism. Let's get out of this pessimistic mode. Ladies and gentlemen, this country has a great future. And I'm not being emotional when I said this. In politics, there's no room for emotions. We have to be rational. We can't be emotional. But I rationally think, and I told my leadership when I was leaving for Thar, that if you can turn Thar around, you can turn the whole country around. It's time that we turn the whole country around, ladies and gentlemen, and we shall do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. You rightly pointed out that the age of hydrocarbon is over. The age of renewable energy is here. I am sure that there would be many questions regarding environmental concerns of indigenous coal of Thar. Before going into that, I would ask Akil Jafri Saab so that he can present some of his recommendation which can be incorporated in this political manifesto document. Sir, I would request that please be brief about 2 or 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. Ladies and gentlemen.
Excuse me. The real contradiction is between the people of Pakistan and the deputy secretary.
Sorry.
Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. As elaborated by these honorable speakers, now it's a proven fact that we need to move towards renewables and increase the share of renewables going forward in order to achieve the 3 key policy targets and goals of affordability, sustainability, and energy security. The government is doing its bit with the announcement of the 2019 ARE policy and in the last year announcement of the framework guidelines for fast-track solar initiatives, under which the government plans to add around about 10,000 megawatts of solar in different categories. even without the government intervention, we have seen what the current status is, that we have around about 530 megawatts of IPPs running in and providing electricity based on solar. Whereas the private sector and the domestic sector has already surpassed 1.5 gigawatts of solar PV installations. More than 1 gigawatt of solar based installations under net metering scheme, and more than 600 megawatts of solar installations in the industry and commercial sectors under B2B sales and captive use. So it's a no-brainer that going solar is the cheapest form of energy, and together with wind and solar, we have to take the share of renewable energy to at least 30% by 2030, and whereas countries are now targeting 50% and 60% in the next 10 years or so. My key, in short, I have 3 recommendations. In order to achieve the targeted share, we really need to revamp our grid infrastructure going forward, because without that, we won't be able to, we'll still be facing issues like blackouts, even and curtailments of wind power projects when the wind is running at its peak. We won't be able to get the maximum benefit out of solar and wind and solar in the hybrid format unless we have a robust grid infrastructure. Proper forecasting is done by the system operator. So we need a robust grid network going forward in order to increase the share and get the most out of the renewables. Secondly, we need to initiate local manufacturing. The Honorable Senator rightly mentioned the example of India, the kind of targets they have and the kind of implementation they are doing. But that is primarily due to the fact that they have a lot of local manufacturing. More than 70% of the products installed in their projects are locally manufactured. Once local manufacture kicks in, you'll have energy service companies, you'll have local EPC contractors available in the country. Only then you can have a sustainable growth in this sector. And the third and the most important thing is that you need to have an active participation of the private sector, even for the not only for the large scale on grid projects, for the B2B, for the initiatives for putting up solar in economic zones, even for the off grid electrification. We have global examples that mini and micro grids being developed and run by private sector are more sustainable as compared to being set up by the public sector, because we have had pilot projects in Pakistan. They were running for 1 or 2 years, and after that, most of them stopped working. So we need the private sector supported by the government, so they can act and with supported by the government through proper set of incentives that act as a catalyst for private sector investments, but at the same time that those incentives do not burden government exchequer and government economic situation. So these are the 3 inputs that I have for the future of renewable energy sector.
Sir, thank you so much, Akil Saab. The major obstacle or barrier, I think, is green financing. The role of development partner is very important. I will move on to Dr. Sebastian Post. Dr. Saab, sir, what are different best practices so that political ownership can be given or enhanced for this adoption of renewable energies? Sir, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I listened carefully to these 3 recommendations, which I would like to, which I can subscribe, maybe with one little caveat concerning the local manufacturing, but that's a special point. But honorable member of parliament, I really liked your quote saying that Pakistan has many possibilities, but only little part of them are utilized. I would even add to this the appeal to say stand on your own feet. I would not trust too much on external, how can I say, international support that might come or might not come, or whatever reason, depending on so many external factors which you cannot influence. I also listened very carefully to what the honorable minister said, and this is very interesting. I mean, I don't want to comment now here on the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine, which has put, of course, Europe into a very difficult, especially energy-related situation. On the other hand, I can say that in a way I can follow his deliberations relatively well. I can understand him very well. But on the other hand, why not taking this problematic situation, especially problematic concerning LNG, to even give a stronger push to go towards renewables? Let me give you, in a way, the current German example. We succeeded in becoming independent, totally independent from Russian gas within 1 year, or 1 year and a half. Before, Russian gas had a share of around 50% of gas, 55% of gas imports, 55% into Germany. And now it's 0%. To say it honestly, part of this compensation comes from LNG now, but it's only a relatively small part. The big part comes from a very strict, painful push in Germany towards renewable energies. And this has also its ups and downs, it's pros and cons, but this is something, this is an experience where maybe Pakistan, that is so rich of resources like wind and sun for solar and wind production, should maybe draw or take the experiences from that. It is possible to become relatively quickly independent from external energy, fossil or whatsoever energy imports, but you really have to start to get things rolling, as you rightly said. That's the first point. The second point is, and that is now also related to the recommendation number, which was the last one, active participation of private sector. I think if you want to really make, or if you really bring a renewable energy production forward in a country, be it Pakistan or be it Germany or wheresoever, public funds can play a certain role in catalyzing and initiating, but the real bulk of finance has to come from private sector. And this is a big problem here, because I can tell you, I mean, somebody said there's a lot, I think it was you, saying that there's a lot of money available here in the country, but not only in the country. I mean, be it now Chinese investors, be it German investors, be it British investors. One of them is sitting next to me. They are desperately waiting to invest in Pakistan, because they see what you rightly said, Pakistan has a future. But the problem is homemade. The problem simply is the fact that the framework to make investment here in the country, let's say it in a diplomatic way, is pretty suboptimal. And it became even more suboptimal over the last months, when foreign companies got more and more into trouble to repatriate their profits. When they got more into when production facilities here and production for constructing a solar panel solar production facility, when you want to construct a wind energy production facility, you have to import material. When this material got stuck in the harbors because of import restrictions. But with this, you are killing everything. Or to say it only, with this, you are killing everything: investment, renewable energy production, everything. So this is very much homemade, and I think once you really get that right and straight, you can bring this whole enterprise on a whole Pakistan renewable energy production enterprise on a good path. It's a bit of I'm only one sentence regarding local manufacturing. If I understood this correctly, local manufacturing means that you have, if you want to set up by yourself, means that you have to get into direct competition with producers, like especially in China, who are very much advanced in technology experience whatsoever. I'm not too optimistic if you can catch up in such a race. The point is try to get FDI partners, foreign direct invest partners. I'm saying again, be them from China, be them from Germany, be them from UK. Try to get them into your country to set up production facilities together with them here in the country. But that again means that you have to clean up your investment framework in the country. So much from my side. Thank you.
I pointed out to His Excellency, the German ambassador, that if a solar panel produces X units in Germany, if you install the same panel in Pakistan, it will be producing 2X units. And I said, it's a very good opportunity for you and your companies to invest. And his answer was, Senator, make a policy. We are interested.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And Madam, the only change, well, we have been, the last 1 week, we have passed about 50 laws. The only law that we have to pass is a 3 or 4 line law, which is the producers of electricity shall have the option of selling electricity directly to consumers. And you will see Pakistan changing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Sebastian. Normative analysis that we need to have optimal framework for investment, well acknowledged, but there is positive analysis as well, that what are actual barriers in the country, so that the normative analysis or normative optimal investment framework could not be actualized. In academia is a place where normative analysis and positive analysis both are studies. I would like to invite Dr. Kafait from NUST for his remarks and comments. Sir, please.
Yeah, thank you, Khalid, for inviting me. And it was a pleasure to listening the honorable parliamentarians and my colleagues here. So the points you have raised here in creating manifestos for the political parties, they are very pertinent. But I have a few points regarding these points. I think these points needs to be prioritized. All points are they are not difficult to implement. At the same time, there is a need to prioritize these points into short-term, medium-term, and long-term agendas. And there is also need to do this prioritization on the basis of time and cost, that how much cost will be required to implement these points and how much time will be needed for these implementations. Because in previously we have seen that various policies, particularly in the energy sector, at the time when the policies were made, they were propagated that like these policies are going to change the landscape in the energy sector of Pakistan. But later on, we we saw that those policies were not the right option that even at that time. So the cost benefit analysis of all these points is also necessary to ascertain that which points have more benefits than costs than the rest of the points. So I have just only these points. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Kapait. I'll move on to Badr Alam Sahab. Sir, what is the relationship between climate justice, environmental concerns regarding indigenous or imported coal, and how just energy transition can be vehicle for this climate justice? Sir, thank you.
I think this is a seminal question for a conversation like this, because we are asking the political parties to include climate justice and energy transition in their manifestos. And when we are asking them to include energy transition in their manifestos, we cannot really succeed until we are also asking them for climate justice, because transitioning from one energy source to another is a technical issue, is an issue of investment, is an issue of economic issue maybe. But to turn it into a political issue, you have to ensure that it concerns the people of Pakistan. And when it comes to people of Pakistan, this transition has to be just. It cannot be just for Lahore and Rawalpindi and Faisalabad alone. It has to be just for people of Thar. It has to be just for people of Gilgit and Chitral. It has to be just for people in Chagi and Dalbandin. And unfortunately, our previous transitions have been very, very unjust. If we look at how we transition from hydro to, for instance, IPPs run on gas and coal and other fossil fuel sources, we see that all those plants were polluting one part of the country, but they were benefiting another part of the country. Same goes for hydro. We destroyed our entire north, we destroyed our entire glaciers, we destroyed our entire ecosystem, which was fragile and also very valuable for the overall survival of our Indus Basin. We destroyed that and created hydroelectricity projects there, and the beneficiaries of those electricity projects were living in Lahore and Islamabad and Rawalpindi and elsewhere. So when we are making another transition to, for instance, solar and wind, we need to be cautious of that fact alone. If we set up solar power plants in Chagi and Dalbandin, the immediate beneficiaries of those solar power projects should be the people of Balochistan. If we set up similar projects in areas which are solar rich or wind rich, the beneficiaries should be there and right next to those projects. Otherwise, we will continue to be making these transitions and Pakistan will continue to be polarized along different lines. If we cannot ensure climate justice for people of Pakistan, we should, I think, be talking about an energy transition that will create more problems than it resolves. And as the Minister, His Excellency, he was saying, he was talking about energy justice for whom? I think this question is very clear. We are asking for energy justice for those who have been the victims of Pakistan's energy policies in the past. And giving them climate justice is the primary responsibility of the political parties of Pakistan, because they voted into power for that purpose. So the question of how to provide that climate justice, I think that is a very, very tough question and not easy to answer in such a small gathering like this. But the answer to whom the justice is needed is very clear and very simple. The people of Pakistan, of course, and especially those people who are marginalized, who do not have the power to bring their voices to the powerful houses of the government or parliament and elsewhere. So with that question answered, I think we need to come up with policies that focus on the marginalized areas, underdeveloped areas, areas which do not have political power, areas which do not have economic power. And if we do that, then our transition to renewable energy sources will also be just and will also benefit the whole of Pakistan rather than benefiting just a small part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Badr Sahab. You are right that before addressing the inequalities within global north and global south, we should also need to incorporate the inequalities of local north and local south as well. So thank you so much. Floor is now open. If you have questions, you can raise your hand and kindly limit your remarks or suggestions to 2-3 minutes. Asad Saab, sir, please.
Thank you so much. I just had a quick conversation with Senator Saab, like the role which he also like played in the approval of the Efficiency Act. There were 20 senators which voted against it and 21 which voted in favor. So I think that he might be the one who was standing in 2016, the act about energy conservation back in 2016 when it got approved, and you were. So yeah, so you can like recall that specific
We
moment.
passed the resolution unanimously 6 months back.
Yeah, that was also the case. So so on the same note which you just mentioned yourself about the industrial parks. So you discussed about solar parks. So in the same keeping in view the same best practice, the industries can have the same utilities like the boilers, compressed air systems, and things like that, where they can utilize them more effectively by looking into the best practices. So certain legislation could be embedded with the industrial parks legislations which are over there, if there is a possibility to do it right now. So that could be one of the thing. And looking into the climate justice aspect, from next week or this week, like the international flights are just going to come up in Skardu airport, and that's like a very good step as well. But on the other side, we are also talking about the vulnerable areas which are there, and they are still utilizing the same generators in the load shedding time duration, which are being run on the fossil fuel, and that black carbon indirectly being deposited on the glaciers in the nearby areas. So so my submission to the all the political parties would be that we foresee more tourists coming in, international tourists, because of these initiatives. But on the other side, we also need to look into responsible tourism aspects, and we need to push the local governments over there, GB government and others, to take such interventions in terms of energy from the clean source, microhydel or other aspects managed by the communities under community governance or whatsoever the local infrastructure is over there. So that these are my few submissions at the moment.
Thank you. Sir, from CPP.
I am Zubair Mahmood from Central Power Purchasing Agency. So just to give input in this forum, I just have 2 objections and 1 suggestion for the House. Basically, transition towards renewable solar, already there is an enabling environment in the country where everyone, like the rooftop solars and everything is there. Also in the central grid, the penetration is a bit lower, but overall the structure is available, legislation is there. So that's why there is around more than 8,000 megawatts of imports of solar panel in the country, which is generating over the years the electricity. And I also believe that is not accounted for in the generation mix shown in your presentation. And the second objection is with respect to the phasing out of coal. So coal is the recent, we have going to exploration of indigenization. So overall purpose, the recently it is to have a shield of indigenization due to the price hike, as Honorable Parliamentarian has mentioned, that imported coal price hit almost $400. So we are scaling up the indigenous coal, and now these 2 objections, the next part is with respect to the suggestion that because these suggestions are for the political parties and this is the highest forum which has to take up the country and set the direction. So I believe that this scope is a bit narrower, just focusing on renewable. It should be like overall integration and aligned with the other economic objectives, like even the coal. Honorable Parliamentarian has mentioned that it has wide implications, not only in the energy sector, in the fertilizer sector, and the fertilizer of the cost of production is reduced, how much the farmers are going to gain, and that money, availability of that money, how it will impact the payment capability of the consumer. So this all the integrated things, and from SDPI forum and for the political party, I think a paper should be bit more thinking into the economic consideration integrated with the energy requirement of the country. So, and enabling framework that I believe that it is most of the time it can be taken care of when there is a concrete and workable solution with long-term roadmap is there. Thank you.
One last question, Jeep ma'am, please.
So just a brief intro, this is Faiza Khan. I represent my own think tank by the name of Tangent. But for the past 15 plus years, I've been working with the World Bank Group in the realm of climate finance. So it's more of a point rather than a question. So solar panels and solar parks have been mentioned again and again. And I was part of the regional assessment team that looked at solar parks in India, in our own backyard as well. And, you know, these are projects. So that's why I'm saying it's a point, not really a question, but I would say it's a request to work backwards, because you know, these solar projects on paper are just absolutely picture perfect and beautiful, but in India and in Pakistan as well, they've been fairly suboptimal, and that's because you know, some of the points were not addressed. You know, the sort of dust coverage that we get in our desert areas, you could say the wear and tear of the panels, not having the infrastructure, or you could say that that full ecosystem to support the sort of maintenance of those panels. And in some cases, I guess security also turned out to be a bit of an issue. So I'm not saying that we should not look at solar parks. I'm actually saying the opposite. We should sort of go head on into such projects, but with a bit of caution. So there's a lot of learning from the region, and I think we should leverage those points. That sort of dust cover that we get on the Indian part and in our Thar as well, that's been a huge, you could say, a pain point for the success of those solar parks. So that was one point. And my second point is regarding the private sector. So again, I don't see any bankers here around, but I think, you know, getting the sort of buy-in from the private sector and, you know, from the banks, from a financing point of view, I think that's absolutely necessary, because there's only so much that any government can do, right? Subsidies come with their own issues, and it's really difficult to mainstream something just through subsidies. So for the private sector to be on board, I think all the sort of banks, banks are in the business of making money, but banks can be onboarded to sort of see the feasibility of these long-term projects. So if I can give you a very small example, agriculture, which is the backbone, which is our economic backbone. So you could say the solar tube wells haven't really been mainstreamed, because now the prices that I'm talking about are probably 3 years old, but the last price that I got to know was about 18 lakhs for a solar tube well, as compared to something like 8 lakhs, which is less than half of regular tube well. So I think with a little bit of push, maybe some kind of mezzanine guarantee facility from the central bank that will push the banks into, because right now banks are, you know, let's be honest, the green aspect of financing from banks is more of I hate to use this word, but greenwashing. You know, like you have pink washing for gender finance, you have green washing, like banks make their products look green, but they're not really green. So I think banks need to be given that push because there are partners in the long term. I mean, the country benefits, the banks can benefit only as long as the country benefits, right? So these were my 2 points and my 2 requests.
Reply to that, madam. Madam, we are going for biosaline agriculture in Thai. I mean, we are using water of up to 6,000 TPD and we are growing cotton, 35 amounts to an acre, and we are growing about 22 crops with saline water. The cost of a solar tube well depends on the depth you are going to. So we have to pump water from as low as 700 feet. And the boring cost is about 1,200 rupees, but that pushes up. But even then, if you have water and you can grow cotton, which is about 50% higher per acre than what you are growing elsewhere, it's worth it. And there are so many solar pumps in Thar and of course in Balochistan also. The water table had gone down, but I think the water table will go up once again because of the rains that we have experienced in Balochistan. But that's one-time expenditure. The operation is almost free.
One quick question, if you allow. Already asked, but being a common citizen, like the question which every citizen would be asking all the upcoming politicians would be like, would they be able to trim the cost of the electricity down for them less than 10 rupees or 20 rupees margin? So that would be the question that has to be looked into the manifesto of any upcoming government as well.
Electricity in Delhi. Nobody is charged a single rupee. And you can run your factory 24 hours around the clock. If he can do it, sun also shines on Pakistan, not only on Mr. Kejriwal. Modi is very disturbed.
I think it's not my position or my competence to talk about finance, but I have a very general point to make about it. In the past, State Bank of Pakistan has run various schemes in which concessional loans were given through private banks for various sectors. And the beneficiaries of those loans were always very rich people of this country. I think a similar scheme can be run by the State Bank of Pakistan in which solar panel financing or renewable energy financing is done for low-income households and small farmers in a similar way, in which the State Bank of Pakistan provides guaranteed insurance to the private banks that their loans, if anyone defaults on their loan, the State Bank will pay them back. And the discount rate or the interest rate charged on them should not be the market based, which is 24% and is unaffordable for any small farmer and any low income household. It should be 6-7%, and we have provided 6-7% interest loans to various sectors, including the construction sectors. So why can't we do that for renewable sector?
So these are calculations for Honorable Mr. Sarda. What we are doing is that we are providing solar panels to 2.1 million houses which had been destroyed by the last year's floods free of cost. So, I mean, you're distributing so much in the Benazir Income Support Program and all those. Now, this is an investment which will grow with time. I mean, providing solar panels to 2.1 million houses which have been destroyed and it touches the poorest of the poor. 200 houses have already been provided these solar panels. But of course, as I tell my friends, a lot of work remains to be done.
Okay, thank you so much. There is a resolution on global phase out for fossil fuels formulated by Dr. Shafkat due to tabled on National Assembly's floor. It will be presented to respectable Romina Saiba and Senator Taj Azhar Sahab. If you could please comment.
Yeah, just one thing I just wanted to say, because of course it's a resolution and it's a great important matter. And of course, I just wanted to say, because yesterday we have done the closing ceremony, closing of our SDGs as well. But this resolution with whole responsibility will try to work a little bit if it would be needed, along with you people and with the support of and the guidance under the guidance of Taj Haider Saab. And then I will give it to the Senate because few of our senators, they are the member of the SDG Secretariat Task Force as well. So we are going to give it to them. As yesterday, I have we have worked collectively on 140A on the local governance system. So we have drafted that. So with that also we have given to the Senate because of course on the 9th or and whatever the date will come, we are going to get the term end. So that's the important thing which I needed to tell over him. Thank you.
Well noted.
Thank you very much, madam. Actually, this is just a draft. You can also add, delete, whatever, because this is your right. But this is a suggestion from our side.
I highly appreciate it. And with that huge responsibility, I wanted to inform the all the members over here that ये ना लगे कि मैं लिया और फिर भाग गई.
Conclude करना. Okay. Okay, to formally conclude this session, I would invite Dr. Hassan Daud Bhatt Sahab. He is former CPEC director and chairman board of investment. I am really sorry, Hassan Sahab. And he is currently serving as associate professor in Varia University. Sir.
Assalamu alaikum, Minister Sahiba, Sandra Saab. First of all, let me first endorse what you said about Thar, because as the first project director of CPEC, I used to visit Thar and I've seen the entire transition process. So I congratulate you for what you've done and salutes to you for the great achievement that you've done there. And I think this is how we should work, I guess. This is one. And recently I did 2 studies, and I would just like to mention those in respect to and the context of what we have had discussion here. One was for Peking University, so I had to go to China amidst the COVID scare and stay there for quarantine for almost 15 days for doing that research. And this was prior to the recent CPC selection and the extension. So they were doing this research on how countries within BRI want to progress and look at BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative. So my overall, in that context, and this is where each one of us plays an important role, my underlying fact on the way that China has taken so many people out of poverty, and perhaps lessons for all of us, was 5 reasons for that. And the first reason was for us to select pragmatic political leaders like yourself and perhaps the minister here. And then, of course, the political leadership's will. That's extremely important for taking any initiative forward, because when you're going to grassroots level, the challenges are immense. And then, of course, the commitment of the people. And when they say people, it means the private sector in this case, because they also have to show commitment to the work that politicians have to do. And the last is, of course, continuity of policy. We see a lot of policies being made. And for this research and for an IPA related research, which I did just recently concluded for USAID on the, so I guess I think we keep blaming the politicians for so many ills that we have. Naturally, it's very easy. There is, and also the bureaucrats for some of the. But I think there is something lagging in a context, and I'll refer to two case studies for you, sir. One was that when China offered us about 900, the whole number was around 3,000 solar sets for Gwadar, for electrification of Gwadar. And would you believe how many days they were lying at the port of Gwadar for them to actually, it's a grant project, free of cost. It took almost 3 months for us to get it out from the port and, distribute among people. So this is the kind of issues that we have. And this is the kind of, when we talk of, equitable distribution of wealth and equitable distribution of resources, we also need to understand as politicians, and perhaps us as technocrats, to say the least, and also yourself as supporter of Pakistan, sir. I think we need to understand the most important fact in terms of the development of all agenda and in terms of continuity of policy, that whether this policy is sustainable, whether the overall context in which we are talking about is realistic, or we are just talking numbers, and we are very good in making numbers, and I acknowledge that. And therefore, the framework aspect that was highlighted. And when I looked at, all of our board of investments, they keep looking, and their agenda is around foreign direct investment. They keep looking at foreign direct investment. And even if you speak to the minister who is responsible for investment, he'll keep speaking. What about the investment which is lying at home, and, the homegrown possibilities of investment in KP, in Balochistan? Similarly, sir, and I'm giving you a few case studies before I conclude. And आपकी बातें सुन के इंसान जज्बाती भी हो जाता है थोड़ा सा, because you've done so much, and when you pass the baton to us, we have to do certain things also. आपके पास CPEC के अंदर 9 special economic zones हैं, or they had transformational. They could have had transformational impact in terms of industrial development that you were talking about. And you were there, and I met you first in Beijing when I was a diplomat there. Why? I can see Dhabeji taking so long with its large size. I can see Rashakai, because I was responsible for Rashakai for the last 4 years. The size is big, the number of investments, security issues. But what about GB, and what about the special economic zone in Mirpur? Why has that taken so long? It was small size investment, tailor-made, perhaps sectoral approach, looking at tourism sector, looking at some of the other mines and minerals and other natural endowment that they have. Why have they took, and why were the politicians not, their politicians, respective politicians from AJK, GB, not pushing the bureaucracy, not pushing people like us to execute such projects? So I think in order to bridge that gap, we need to look at it in a whole of government approach. Unless you have a whole of government or whole of Pakistan approach, perhaps it won't work. We keep making promises. हमारा religion हमें कहता है कि आप वो वादा करें जो आप पूरा कर सकें. And therefore, when you look at your incentive policies, you have a very, very realistic incentive. I've done research, comparative research with Bangladesh, Laos, Cambodia. I've served in Vietnam for 4 years. The problem is, on paper, it looks very good. And one of the cases that he highlighted was, repatriation of dollars, profit only, and not even the entire amount, just the profit. और यकीन करें कि जितने डॉलर्स होते हैं उतनी लकीरें निकालनी पड़ती हैं उनको. मैं इसलिए उर्दू में बोल रहा हूं so that I can make more sense. So therefore, and also in terms of financing, why is State Bank not taking the government's lead in this and supporting the financing on this? Because if State Bank gives them orders, कौन सा बैंक है सर जो कि उनके ऑर्डर नहीं मानेगा? उसने चलना नहीं है, उसने आगे नहीं लेके जाना. Because I'm saying this because it hurts me while I was working in KP for 4 years and telling as promotion of SME sector, because I was the focal person for SME sector. So there are areas where so perhaps on our part we should select pragmatic leaders in the next election, because each of those manifestos of the large parties talk about expanding the base of tax collection. They talk about access of energy. They talk about poverty alleviation. And to you, sir, I would just like to highlight that ये matter of privilege नहीं है. It is a human right to have electricity now. It is a human right to have access of electricity, because if you do not give them electricity, how would you give them good quality healthcare? How would you give them good quality education? Because naturally it's everyone's right to get good quality education. So as a matter of principle, sir, aapne ye jihad jari rakhna hai. Ma'am, I've seen you working tirelessly. So you would continue, and we will keep saying what we are saying. And of course, just one point on ease of doing business, and I said this in our last interaction also. बहुत सारे ease की हम बात करते हैं. I think one E is ease of doing business aspect, because अगर इंडिया के अंदर आपने एक बहुत अच्छी केस स्टडी दी, और हमारा प्रॉब्लम ये है इन टर्म्स ऑफ नैरेटिव बिल्डिंग, एंड आई एम श्योर सम मीडिया गाइज वुड बी है, जब हम नैरेटिव बिल्डिंग करते हैं तो हम अपने वी डू नॉट स्पीक अबाउट गुड केस स्टडीज विद इन पाकिस्तान. Thar is one great case study. Russia is another great case study. I wish I could have said Bostan is another great case study, the SEZ in Bostan, but we could not. But we have done certain good things in Balochistan, and we have done certain good things in Gwadar. But what was stopping us? Why were we only providing 10 megawatt of electricity to Gwadar for last 70 years? For the entire district. Why had the government had to push, go to Iran, get that 100 megawatt for Gawadar's development? How could you develop? And also, based on the push that came from China, had to approve 300 megawatt plant in Gawad. These were simple, and I keep saying this, and this is not SDPI statement, this is my own person's. तो जो इंस्टीट्यूशन है इसका कोई इससे वो कहते हैं स्टेटमेंट के इदारे का इससे कोई ताल्लुक नहीं. आई थिंक अब हमें वी शुड नॉट टॉक अबाउट लो हैंगिंग फ्रूट्स. दैट्स डिफिकल्ट, यू हैव टू pluck them from trees, वो बड़ी effort लगती है. I think we should start talking about fruit which is lying and getting rotten on the floor. You just pick them up and work on that. So with this said, I would request Honorable Minister to please come here for a vote of thanks, and perhaps say something at the end if she would like. Thank you.
So, well, now it's the time to conclude and vote of thanks. I think it's today, after listening to, of course, for me, it's always a great honor not to only listen to Mr. Taj Haider, always to learn, because I think because our seniors, I'm a very, thank you very much for your appreciation of my work. But I believe when I've joined, a small example I just wanted to say over here or share. I've joined the SDG Secretariat on the 2nd of June last year. And when that time, my political leadership as well asked me that why she want to take SDG Secretariat as a task force, why she want to take, why she can do better maybe in some standing committee, or she should take that over there. She can get some perks and privileges as well, because SDGs is something which a task force is something which is like a volunteer work. It's a forum of we have 4 forums in the parliament, and SDG is one of them. So, and the day I've joined it on the 2nd June 2022, that was Friday, and when I joined, and that time we didn't know that God will be kind enough to give me a little more time to perform. But that day I just knew that maybe we are going to leave in a week, maybe, or after 2 weeks, maybe. Not much than that. So, I've strategized along with my team. I would really like to say thanks, because it's more over a closing time. Yesterday as well, I've done that. But today, again, when I got the opportunity to say, I just wanted to share, there were 2 people, my team were, 3, in fact, Sadaf, consultant, and Ali Sardar Jafri, who was here with me, and then Mehreen, one of my persons. So there are 3 people, 3 youngsters, and they 3 were the consultants of UNICEF. They've been funded by UN. So there was none other person was there. And in the last 4 years in that, there was nothing has been done much more. I don't want to give any political, point scoring. They have done and I didn't done. That was nothing. I think it's everybody's own choice what they want to do in their life. But what we have done, that we have sat, and I told them that, I don't know how much time I'm going to have. Maybe week, maybe 2 weeks, I don't know. But we have to strategize our priorities, and then we have to go for week wise, or then we get a time. And now today, alhamdulillah, it's been 13 months, 13 to 14 months, we have completed that journey. And in that time, because my work is not to do the development work, but to design the policies, to work with the framework, to do the collaboration, and to bring all the provinces together and to see what the best practices they are doing, where we are lacking behind, and coordination, communication was whatever the scenes were missing. So we tried to do that, and in which we have done pretty good productive things, because I believe where there's a will, there is a way. Maybe what I have done, that is maybe just a needle in a haycock, but still needle matters a lot. It's a great way. Still, I always, I'm a student. And when somebody asks, what is your qualification? I said, I think, well, I've learned when I was a child, I was not having, I don't have any siblings, and I've just been brought up with my Dada Abu, and I was not having parents. My parents got separated when I was just 3. So my Dada Abu used to say, that time there was not a social media time or gadgets were there. So he always tell me that, your best friend is your book. And I love that. And then he told me that the world is a book. You have to explore every page. You have to read it again and again and again. So that is the training which we need to do. Like, if we really want to achieve something, we need to do the research. We need to go for the technical expertise. We need to stay along connective with a proper, but with the right people, with the right approach. And that is the reason from last, I don't know, it's been a long relation with SDPI. And I believe that along with the SDPI, it's moreover like it's my second home. But sometimes I feel like more that it's my first home, because when I want to do something and that Babu Saab bureaucrats or bureaucracy, when they don't let me do anything, I said, okay, wait, I'll let you know. And now that is the reason, the approach which I used in Parliament or in any other office, nobody stopped my file. And nobody can, I dare for this, I challenge on this, that anybody can go and say that Romina has done something for her own personal, for her own personal, like any PC1 or development, nothing. Whatever I've done for the thing which I've committed. And I never let those babus to stop anything, to stop those visions which we want to work, because I believe the people like Taj Sahab, Honorable Senator, it's great honor for me, but they are the people, and the people who are from the Parliament they are because of people, by the people, and for the people. And when these think tanks or other research, the people, they come to us that we want to do your capacity building. I'm extremely sorry, I hate this word now. I don't say that we don't need or anybody need the capacity building. That is now, if you're talking to the parliamentarian, I'm not saying that we are perfect. We know everything. No. We have a very short time, and the Babus have 25 years. They know okay, we are going to stop the file. We are going to hide the file. How many times how long they're going to stay? It's okay. But no, we have to push. We know what we want to do. One thing. Another thing is more important than these development sectors or the researchers, even the national or international. I always tell them that, please, what I've learned from my elders and from this all best practice, it's a great learning for me, that come up, if you want to work with us, if you want real and actual change, please provide the solution kits. That this is the solution, this is our expertise, this is your area's issue, let's work on it. That is how we can achieve the goals. I'm not talking about any SDGs, but then I have to talk, because I personally believe, I have learned, and I hammered again and again that SDGs, nothing is bigger than the SDGs, because that is the basic political agenda of any, that is politics. Every party should need to fight, and that is the reason UN or international or other countries, they're talking about the high political forum dialogues. And one thing else, the politicians, most of the time, what I believe, that they talk what their people want to hear. If you want to hear abusive language, of course, unki majboori hai, wo wahi bolenge. But these are the few challenges, few rights and wrong. But other than that, if we really want to have something in our country, in among us, I'm the only one who left in my family because I was the one who said, no, I have to stay here. And I did. No matter what, every day is a challenging day. But I think people like you are very much experts. Few things which really needs to get changed. I believe that if you're talking agriculture, please, what I've learned when I'm from grassroots level person. What I've learned, because SDPI is here, they know that when I wanted to bring some legislation, I always go as a mystery shopper to do the research as well. And I believe no legislation should come without any research. So I believe that if parliamentarians or we want to do something, if suppose it's a matter of agriculture, please don't bring the PhD experts only. Try to engage that farmer as well. It's very important because they are the local people. Then they can give maybe some sort of a solutions which are more important, which are more relevant. Of course, when we are talking here about energy, but we have, of course, touched few other areas as well. As my colleague, Mr. Musaddiq Malik went. He said few things and then he went, but I believe that nothing is impossible. I believe, this is my firm belief, that Romina who's standing in front of you, who was no one, and today you just Google the name and something good or bad will come for me. So if I'm from a humble background, can do little things, why not anyone else? So the only thing which I believe that if you're talking about, like you have mentioned about Skardu, you have mentioned about all those areas, of course, Thar, and not only Thar, I really believe in the medical things which are happening in Sindh, that is also commendable. And we need to appreciate each other. We need to start appreciating other, and then we need to feel that what our responsibility. In my few, maybe whatever I'm saying, it hurts to anyone, but I'm sorry for that. But I said a few days back in my speech कि वो मुल्क है जहाँ पर बाबू जी जो है उनको काम ना करने की तनख्वाह जो काम करते हैं उसकी रिश्वत लेनी होती है. So this is somehow sad. But how, till when? The only thing which mostly people think that the politicians are corrupt, maybe they are bad or they are illiterate. Excuse me, maybe I'm so illiterate. But I'm not that illiterate, क्योंकि अनपढ़ पार्लियामेंटेरियन भी अगर आता है तो अपने लोगों के बारे में जानता है. और बाज़ औक़ात मैं, like I have seen, I don't want to do more an emotional thing and just wanted to conclude. I've seen highly educated, but they're worse illiterate. And I've seen and I've learned from illiterate people that they're having more social, moral, ethics, values. And I've learned a lot from them. With this thought, I just wanted to say thanks to SDPI and their all collaborative partners, all the members over here, national, international diaspora, of whoever are here. And once again, please keep on doing good work. And those young faces over here, and most of them they knew. But I just wanted to say one thing: where there is will, there is a way. And if you have faith and believe, my firm, I have this great faith that I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Maybe I have nothing for tomorrow, but I have the faith that, yes, tomorrow is mine. So believe in that, yes, we can. And I think anyone can of us change the whole scenario. Thank you so very much. Jazakallah.